Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order this Curriculum and Pupil Services Committee meeting of the School District of Haverford Township. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for the video record, I should say this is April 11th, 2024. I missed that. I will turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jen Saxa, to walk us through the committee agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Wiedemann. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. We have a world language proposal. We'll hear from our middle school folks about that, a life skills program review, and a gifted program update. And for those who are not in the room, we have lots and lots of folks here to support all 3 of those presentations, so we thank them for being here this evening. We will start with the world language proposal at the middle school, and for that presentation, we will hear from Mr. Horan, our principal, and Ms. Becky Ford.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you an 8th grade world language option. So this is for your consideration tonight. We are going to share with you some work that we've been doing at the middle school for the last year and a half, exploring some options for our students.
So the program that we're presenting for you tonight is called Prima Lingua. Prima Lingua was developed by a teacher who's actually local here at Friends Central, and it's designed to be a preparatory course for our 8th graders to take in order to sort of lift them into a level where they feel more comfortable in a traditional world language classroom. So right now, our students start 8th grade with either French, Italian, Latin, or Spanish. And some of our students are still mastering some of the grammatical concepts required for a language. And Prima Lingua would add a foundation for these students in order to make them feel more ready and confident in a traditional world language classroom. So like I said, Prima Lingua targets our grammar center. So students will be learning a lot about the English language through the lens of Latin, Greek, and depending on which world language teacher is teaching, either Spanish or Italian. Providing our students with an opportunity to get used to some of the linguistic terms that we use in a world language classroom, and looking at that both as an aid to one day hopefully taking a world language class at Haverford High School and beyond, or perhaps having it help their skills within their ELA classrooms as they continue their pursuit of advancing their English language skills.
As far as the curriculum and staffing go for Prima Lingua, we're really fortunate that all curriculum materials that are related and resources related to this program are online and free. You can purchase like physical copybooks or workbooks if you like. So, the choice is ours about how much we want to invest in that. Our target for next year, we're just kind of, anticipating maybe 20 to 40 students. That would be 1 to 2 classrooms, depending on the number of students. It's a very traditional program as far as instruction goes, and staffing, there's no implications because rather than taking Spanish or French or Italian, they'll be taking Prima Lingua. So it's the same number of students, the same number of teachers, the same number of sections that we traditionally offer. Our target audience, the students that we believe would be interested in Prima Lingua, are those students that have struggled with our world language class as this school year progresses. We have students that, as 7th grade students, they have 4 core classes, your traditional math, language, science, and social studies. When they transition to 8th grade, that world language class that they take is an additional core class. So some of our students are just not ready for the organization part of that additional core class. And some of our students just need more practice with their grammatical skills and their literacy skills. So we believe there is, a group of students that would really benefit from this class and be interested in this class. And it's a self-selected option. So the students themselves will select the course. Some of the kids we will talk to this year if this is approved, and make sure that they understand the options that they do have. I really believe that, and maybe Becky can speak to this as well, that there's some students that will be relieved at this option, that they have this option. The student experience, the kids that are actually in this class, if this is something that we can offer kids next year. I think this slide is like that middle bullet point there that Primolingual will offer, building linguistic confidence. It's on their pace and level for our students, for some of our students, and it's going to put them in a better position to enter high school and take that official, like Spanish 1, French 1, Italian 1. They're just gonna be more secure in their literacy skills and be more confident walking into that class and be more successful. So that was the driving motivation for us as we've talked about this over the last year and a half. And I'll let Becky do this slide. I mean, there's no way I'm gonna be able to pull that off.
Thank you, gracias, merci, gracias, Bobby Dominguez, y gracias.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think I might not have heard correctly.
Sure.
So, for the students that would be choosing this, they would be going then in 6th and 7th grade to the current courses, where they would be still exposed to Spanish and Latin and then French and Italian, or?
Correct. And I didn't say this, but it's here on the slide for you. Like, our program in the school will not change. We will just add the option in 8th grade. So in 6th grade, everybody has exploratory world language, Spanish and Latin. Everybody will have that. 7th grade, exploratory French and Italian. And then 8th grade, we have our traditional Spanish, Latin, French, Italian, and hopefully to add Prima Lingua. And to kind of like, if you're kind of piecing this puzzle together, you have your exploratory experience in 6th grade, and right now we offer this full year language 1. We believe that this opportunity will bridge the gap for some students. That's a jump. So our exploratory classes, it's a 47 day class, and they're doing 2 world languages, and it's lots of pieces about Spanish and Latin. There's culture, there's art, there's a lot of things. It's not just the language.
And then the goal becomes for our students that when they're 8th graders, they're taking level 1 of the language, which is the same level 1 course that we offer at Haverford High School. So our students who are struggling within the 8th grade classroom would benefit from this Prima Lingua program as sort of a bridge to get them from that exploratory level, learning about the languages, getting sort of a taste of things. And then in 8th grade, being able to take this Prima Lingua class, really get their feet grounded in the language, really understand some of the terms and concepts and grammatical structures that exist outside of English, that exist in most Romance languages. So that way, when they hit Haverford High School, they can begin with level 1 and get back on track and feel confident rather than feeling like, I wasn't totally sure in 8th grade, I didn't do a great job in level 1, and then we push them into level 2 because more often than not, our students are ready. And then we potentially put students in a position to feel unconfident in their own abilities when we have this capability to give something like Prima Lingua, where students will really be able to find their footing in world language instruction and then start level 1 in high school when the grades, really are so very important to their futures, feeling confident and good about themselves.
It sounds great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something that we think that they would need in 6th grade instead of 8th grade, like that they would be able to do these other introductory courses.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Our 6th grade teacher does teach sort of a snip of Latin, and a lot of the way that Prima Lingua looks for our 6th graders getting the exploratory Latin looks very similar to the Prima Lingua curriculum, which is really great.
I have a question. Is this, the students are going to be taking this independently? You said this was online. Is that just where you get the materials?
So the materials are online. The woman who developed the curriculum has posted this. It's a fully guided curriculum with a workbook. The materials are all online, but one of the 8th grade world language teachers will be live instructing the class 5 days a week.
Okay. Would the students have access to the materials that are online? So if they needed to work on it or wanted to work on it?
Absolutely. So I don't think it would be a secret to the kids that it's online. I think that we would provide them with like a bound workbook of some sort that we can provide here from our print shop that has all of the materials and work within it.
Okay.
So I just have, I have a couple of questions, but I guess I want to start with a clarifying question. I know from my sons were at the high school, at the middle school, my one son in 8th grade took Latin and my other son took Spanish. And I know based upon the people that I know, their friend group, most of them, they took the same language in high school, but they stayed at the level 1 level. Is that generally, of the people
Do you want me to talk?
Do you have the percentage of, like, how many children in Haverford High School, assuming you don't switch languages, of
Yeah, so the
course.
vast majority of our students, the sort of metric that we've worked out with our colleagues up at the high school, I teach 8th grade Spanish, is that our students who have earned a 79 or above are ready for level 2 at the high school. So I would say, more than 3/4 of our students move into the second level of the language.
Okay.
I think that what we're hoping for here is placing students in a level 2 class that feel like they have the grammatical know-how to navigate that classroom. Colleges are continuing to become more and more competitive. And if you look at a student who struggled in a level 1 class, and in order to get into some of those more competitive colleges, they may require 2 to 3 years of a language, which for us would be 2 to 3 semesters, right? And they're looking for those students to continue to earn high grades. By the time you hit Spanish 4, some of the grammatical concepts and structures that exist are so foreign to the English language that unless you're really ready to dig into a world language, we feel concerned that we don't want students to ever feel lost or behind in a language. So if we are able to give this prima lingua option and then have students start at level 1 and then they're taking level 1, 2, and 3 to meet that college requirement instead of levels 2, 3, and 4, we're setting these students up for academic success.
But the students could, though, I know many who, you could just do Spanish 1, Latin 1, French 1 at middle school and
then take
feel
level
confident
2 in
and take
high
it.
school.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question on that. So American Sign Language, the Department of Education, Pennsylvania Department of Education considered it a world language. So I'm just curious, does this program cover all the Department of Education world languages, or is there an ASL component that could be included?
So I can talk to our world language classrooms. Right now in world languages, we teach through something called teaching through comprehensible input. And a large part of that is American Sign Language. I use it in my classroom almost every day in order to give students a tangible motion to do because it helps their retention. I know that Mr. Horan did look into ASL as an option. Unfortunately, it was there are 2 people licensed in the entire state of Pennsylvania to teach American Sign Language. And while we'd love to have one.
We worked really closely with Mrs. Saxa and just exploring this option last year and even the year before. There's very limited staff that are certified, and it would require some additional staffing and some additional planning between the middle school and the high school.
Okay.
But hopefully in the future.
I was sent some information about some virtual resources on ASL. One is the ASL Virtual Academy, and also Delaware County Community College has a virtual course. I don't know if it would fit. I guess the difference here is you have an in-person instructor using the online materials.
Right, and that was one of our considerations and I think earlier we had a question about is this an online class or is this a person teaching the students? And I think in our school, middle school, our preference would be to have a teacher in the front of the room teaching the students rather than online coursework with their Chromebook. So for middle school, I think that would be our best option right now, but we're still going to explore, opportunities.
Okay, great, thank you.
I just have one question. First of all, I'm surprised that there are more people certified in Latin than ASL. That's kind of interesting, but it's what it is. Do other districts use Prima Lingua, or is this kind of a new?
So I explored with a few different districts. Locally, public schools, the biggest one that uses it, and I'm gonna blank, is out in Plymouth Meeting. I met with her, I
Okay.
can't think of the name of the woman. But a couple of the local private schools also are using it right now. So that's where I got a lot of my information from, but a lot of our sort of local districts break world language up a little bit differently than we do in this moment.
Okay, thanks.
Just a follow-up to that, when you said the districts that, private schools that are using it, at the 8th grade level, is that where they're using it?
It's a little bit all over the place. A lot of the districts are using it in 6th grade as sort of like an introductory before they even offer exploratory. Then they'll offer exploratory, and then those students won't be granted access to world language courses until they hit high school. So they'll take sort of prima lingua as 6th graders, exploratory courses in 7th and 8th, and then move into formal world language instruction in high school.
And for the students who would be in the Prima Lingua class, they would not necessarily have selected yet what language they might want to pursue, right? So is it still that general exploration and learning, you said like the grammatical foundations of Romance languages and that, but is it still an opportunity for them to further see like, oh, did I like French or Italian or Spanish as the one I'd want to pursue?
Yeah, so our students will still be able to self-select whatever language that they choose once they are registering for their 9th grade year. They'll be able to self-select any of the languages that we offer. And I think that our hope in 8th grade is to sort of be able to bring in the languages we have within the building, to sort of say like, look how cool this is. In English, it looks like this. In Latin, it looks like this. In Spanish and French. So to be able to show students sort of the comparison of language.
Right, I think that would give them a nice opportunity to feel more comfortable and confident in the language they're picking when they have more time to understand
Explore,
how it works
absolutely.
and what it sounds like and how it's used. Okay. All right, so thank you for the presentation in terms of what might be next for consideration. What would that look like for the district and board?
Sure. We do not have a formal course selection guide at the middle school, so there is not the same process that we go through at the high school. So what we anticipate as being next steps would be that this presentation would be a part of the board report at our next board meeting. And then following that, we will look to see if we need to formally adopt or if we can just indicate that we approve an additional course offering at the next business meeting.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you.
Many thanks to Mrs. Ford and Mr. Haran. And we know the middle school schedule starts early, so if you're not able to stay for the whole meeting, we certainly understand that. Great, thank you both. Up next, we have our life skills presentation. I believe that's the next one on the schedule. Yep, life skills program review updates. And Ms. Shakura Monroe is going to lead our team here, which looks like it consists of Mrs. Bond Farrell and Mrs. Elko. Make sure I'm using this correctly. This is the right, okay, sorry.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are here to present today the Life Skills Support Program Review Committee update. And with me today, I have Holly Bonfarrell, who is the middle school psychologist, but was previously at Linwood Elementary School. And then we have Kathleen Elko, who is the current life skills support teacher at Linwood Elementary School. So for those who don't know, what is a life skills program? Oh, I didn't say it. I'm not used to doing both things at once. Let me see if I got this right. Okay, I got it. Thanks, it's okay. So a life skills program is a special education program for our most complex learners. So students who have complex intellectual, academic, and adaptive functioning needs. Currently, we have 16 students K to 12 in our life skills support program, and there's also a handful of students in our PATH program. That's our post-secondary transition program. That program is mixed up of different types of students, but some life skills students transition into that program as well. The program is typically supplemental level, meaning that students spend a large part of their day in that life skills support classroom, but then they also spend some time in the general education classroom. So we have life skills support classes in 3 of our buildings, Linwood Elementary School, Haverford Middle School, and Haverford High School. Between March and June of 2023, the Chester County Intermediate Unit observed, conducted interviews, and gathered data to determine the strengths and needs of our life skills support program. Nicole Battistelli, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education, shared the results of the audit at the August 10th board meeting. I know it might be hard to see, but okay. Okay, so from that audit, there were some recommendations that we were able to immediately address. Things that were easy to either just inform people of or to correct. So the first one there that says provide additional academic data in high school IEPs. All of our IEPs include academic data, but it was determined that for the high school, they weren't including specific data, or this data wasn't as specific as it is in the elementary level. And although they had the data, they weren't putting it all in the IEP. So the teachers were just informed to, use everything that they have, even if they thought it was less significant to include that information. For the next one, ensure signatures of all participants on IEPs, ERs, and RRs, as well as the one at the top, develop a checklist to reflect key components of an IEP. We were able to address that together with a checklist. The checklist helps the teams remember all of the things they need to do, and signatures is a huge part of that. So they're not allowed to process their documents until those IEP signatures are obtained.
Can
So
I
those
just
two.
ask what,
I'm
IEP is
sorry.
one that's a more commonly used one in ER and in RR?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Thanks.
So IEPs is individual education program. ER is evaluation report, and RR is reevaluation report. And then the next one, have school psychologists report reasons for referral and summarize previous assessments in RRs or reevaluation reports. And that's just was a matter of letting the school psychologists know that that wasn't consistently in the reports, and that they are now mindful to make sure that they do that in their reports going forward. And then the last one was PBSP stands for Positive Behavior Support Plan, and to include additional teaching strategies for positive behavior. And again, that was another thing that was simple to just inform our district behavior specialists that that is something they need to include in their plans. And that has been done. So going for the psychologists and for the behavior specialists going forward, they're aware that they need to include that information. So the audit also identified areas that required a little bit more work, and that's where the committee comes in. Recommendations that needed to be addressed by the review committee included training on transition assessments and goal development, protocol development for functional behavior assessments to include more parent input and student input when appropriate, more in-person training for paraprofessionals and general education teachers, and providing students more opportunities to use self-help skills as well as collecting data on those self-help skills. And so the Life Skills Support Review Committee, I feel like it's such a long title, is comprised of a small group of educators in various roles. And I would like to acknowledge and thank the committee members. Again, Holly Bonfarrell, who's with us, and Kathleen Elko is here, who is with us, but also Alicia Courtney, who is a special education teacher at the middle school, Rosemary Edmondson, who is assistant principal at the high school, Lauren Herbert, who is a special education teacher at the high school, Kayla Kishba, also a special education teacher at the high school, Elizabeth McCain, a regular education teacher at Linwood Elementary, Dr. Jillian McGilvery, a principal at Linwood, and of course myself. So thank you. If anybody's listening and watching, thank you very much for your help with this committee. So the purpose of the committee, the Life Skills Review Committee was charged with reviewing the report by the Chester County Intermediate Unit to identify target areas. Then we broke up into subcommittees to address the targeted areas. Through research and data collection, we will be able to develop an action plan on how to improve the Life Skills Support Program.
All right, it's my turn. All right. We are review committee. I'm going to kind of shorten some of the words because there is a lot. Our review committee developed 3 focused subcommittees. We developed a programming committee, a training committee, and a data collection committee. Our programming committee's goal was to identify a curriculum that teaches life skills or adaptive functioning skills. We also wanted to research our schedules and figure out a way to implement these lessons within our schedule. The goal of the training committee was to define trainings. It was to find trainings for our regular education teachers as well as our paraprofessionals so that they have a better understanding of the needs of the students within a life skills support program, and also how to best support them throughout their entire day rather than just having the special education teachers support. The goal of a data collection committee was to identify a method to collect data to show for our students to show progress in their life skills and adaptive skills in 2 settings, both in school and in the community, because both are very important. And also to find a better way to get parent information for our FBAs. Okay. The training subcommittee, I don't think I have the schedule. I just have programming, but I can go over this. Oh, there you go.
Sugar has us very well prepared. So the training subcommittee worked to identify areas in which we feel like our staff needs more training. There's a bunch of different resources in the community that we can utilize for that. The DCIU has a Complex Learners Institute that is a really nice resource. The CCIU also has resources. Patan and our district behavior analysts also can help us with trainings.
And I just want to say, there's a list of trainings there. None of these are set in stone yet. These are areas that they think are most important, that they want to focus on, and hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to narrow it down, have more information.
And then the data collection subcommittee is the committee that I've been helping out with. The review identified 2 broad areas that we need to address. In addition to the adaptive skills curriculum that Ms. Elko spoke about, we also realized they also identified for us that we need to work on our functional behavior assessments, which are the assessments we do to identify, when students are having behavioral difficulties, why is that happening and how can we help them with that? The review found that some of those FBAs didn't have adequate parent input, and so that was an area of focus, is to figure out a way to collect more input from parents and involve them in that process more. The district BCBAs now have a parent interview tool they're going to be using as part of that process, and as well as a student reinforcement survey. And then in terms of next steps, these are what we're thinking the next.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that maybe there were a couple of slides that we went quickly past. I'm not
That makes
sure
sense.
if the programming subcommittee, I think we just accidentally skipped them.
Okay, let's-
Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. One more.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hold on.
That goes quick sometimes. Okay, got it. Okay, because I was like, I didn't see it.
I've
Thank
one
you.
more to the left. Yeah, yep. The programming committee. Our main goal was to come up with a program that is research-based and highly structured that would meet the needs of our students' adaptive skills. Haverford has a phenomenal functional academic skills that is research-based, highly structured. We've done a great job. But now we need to have a different shift in our focus to focus more on our adaptive skills. Adaptive skills are skills that help our students become more independent. So personal care, hygiene, going out into the community, being able to travel. I mean, our students, we want them to travel, as well as employment skills for our older students. They are the main focuses of where an adaptive functioning skills program would help us. And the next slide. The 3 programs that our committee came up with, I was on this committee, was the LINKS program. It's the Linking Assessment and Instruction for Independence, the AFLS, or the Assessment of Functional Living Skills, and the FISH. The FISH is the Functional Independent Skills Handbook. We looked at these and we compared them, what grade levels they support, the cost, the pros, and the cons. Now you will see there's a lot of pros in the most expensive one. That's the usual thing. And you can see the prices. I'm not going to read them for you guys. But the LINKS program offers a comprehensive program that helps upper elementary schools through post-secondary. It provides lesson plans that are aligned to state standards. It helps, so it doesn't provide IEP goals, they're individualized, but it offers suggested IEP goals as well as objectives to meet those goals. It offers custom visuals to help support those routines. Visuals are key in life skills. They help us in every way you can imagine. And it offers 3 tiers. So there's 3, just like in our academic program where there's like 3 different levels where students can access these skills. This again would have 3, so you could teach the same skill to kids in 3 different levels at the same time. One of the cons is it's online only, and we would need a dedicated time within our schedule for it to be taught, and our schedules are quite tight. The assessment of functional living skills goes from 2 years all the way up. It's the middle grade. It provides recommendations for creating individualized lesson plans and helping develop skill lists for our students. And it gives us a valid assessment. It determines a learner's current skills and provides tracking to measure progress, which is great. This is more of an assessment than a curriculum, and materials are not provided. So this would be more on the teacher to create it. And then there's the FISH, the functional independence skills. This has sample lessons, but that's about it. As well, it has assessment booklets that can transition from students all the way up through high school, which is great. We actually have that for our Brigance right now. And it is great to be able to see from year to year, like kindergarten all the way up. But this is the most one that's just an assessment and not really a curriculum. And the materials are not provided at all. So they are our three. That's
Okay,
our
so now
recommendations.
we're going to get back to, we went through training and data, okay, now.
All right, awesome. So in terms of next steps, by May 30th, we will determine a facilitator for each identified training, as well as make final selections on the adaptive functioning program. There are, as Kat said, a few different ones we're looking at. And then over the course of summer 2024, the work will be with the building administrators and the curriculum department to develop trainings for the upcoming school year, as well as, present selections to the plans to the cabinet for approval.
That should go to a thank you page, but it's not going. So that is the end of the presentation. Thank you. And so do you have any questions for us?
I have a few questions. So first being, could you provide almost like a snapshot as to what a Haverford student might experience in the life skills program? I understand it's individual, but is this individual, everyone in the classroom working on something? Is it certain students are out in the community learning how to travel? What might a student experience in this program?
So it is a little different. You're talking about elementary versus middle school versus high school. But all the students have a schedule. And a large part of the schedule is very much academic. They all have functional academics built in, and that's on every level. We use the unique learning program for the academic piece. So they all, usually that's in the morning because they're a little fresher in the morning. So they correct me if elementary is usually in the morning.
It's a little bit different.
A little different, but you do use the unique learning
unique,
system,
yes.
yes. So they all have functional academics. In the middle school, our life skills students do go to regular ed classes for science and social studies. I'm not sure if it's like that for elementary. And again, elementary, you've got to think about is kindergarten through 5th grade. So it's going to just look very different from student to student. Every year, you don't have every grade because it's just a small population. For the high school, they are allowed to pick their courses too, just like other students, but obviously there's guidance with that. So we try to have their functional academics with their life skills teachers, and then they pick electives. They like to go to gym classes. They like to do art, whatever elective they do have say. We try to get their parent involved. They're like, what do you think they would like to do? So we can incorporate them with the general population. In the high school specifically, there are days where they go out shopping. They go to get supplies for the school store that's at the high school. If anybody has been at the high school, there's a little school store and they run it. The life skills program runs that. They have snacks, and they have coffee, and they have gear. They have Haverford gear as well. So again, it looks a little different, but it is a schedule. The kids know like what they're doing. And it's just a combination of, like I said, those academics with some of those life skills, but it's not a structured curriculum for the life skills part. It's kind of like things we know they need to learn how to do. And the audit results suggested to make that more formal. Does that help? Okay.
That's helpful. And the other question that I had in terms of the recommendations that were immediately addressed, do we have a system in place now to prevent those things from reappearing, or is there additional resources or training that's needed there just to keep Haverford on the right track?
Right. So the checklist, I will say, has been the hugest implementation that it makes it very easy to make sure it doesn't happen. And that, so when, I'm trying to explain it in as simple as terms as possible, but when a case manager has an IEP for a student, there are a lot of documents involved. There's IEPs, there is an invitation that has to be sent in, there's an evaluation report, there's a signature page and all these things. So now the checklist you have to they have to turn that in with everything marked by their administrator who has checked to make sure those things and signed off on it before it can even come to Pupil Services to be processed. If it's not, it goes back and they do it and then it comes back again. So that has really eliminated that part of missing pieces. And we've been doing it, I guess, for almost since the beginning, maybe about October of this year, it's been going on. So it's been going pretty well. There's still people who forget and we have to send it back. We don't like to do that, but we do. We send it back. The psychologists, they're a smaller group and there's 8 of them. And then there's, how many do we have? 4 behavior specialists. So they're a smaller group, and it's very easy to work with them directly and say, this is what we want to do. They can express what works for them. And we can put in, checks and balances. We can even use a checklist for that as well to make sure those things. We haven't used a checklist with them because, like I said, they're a much smaller group to kind of manage than the population of case managers or special education teachers. It's much larger. But those are the types of things that we're doing too. And we have meetings. We have meetings every month with the behavior specialists, and the school psychologists meet. For the school psychologists who are here, how often do you meet? Twice a month. Yeah. Okay. So they meet frequently and kind of keep each other and check they're doing the things that we need them to do. So there are a lot of meetings and checks in that way.
Can I also add that as a department, we added a standard operating procedure for all special ed teachers?
Okay.
So it's a large manual that they all have that helps kind of keep all that information easily accessible for them. So if they're questioning how many days before this do I have to send this document, or how many days, it's all in one document for them. So that came out of just us trying to put everything in one place. It actually started during COVID when we were trying to get everything situated online, and we just kind of built it out from there.
That helps. That is like a holy grail for
and
special ed teachers.
I do think people need reminders that exists because that's new for people, and that it also, because it's in a Google form, it can be updated as things change so that it's immediate and it's not, they have to wait till something gets printed again like we used to have to do before. So the other thing I didn't mention is that for the middle and high school, there are monthly special ed department meetings. So again, I feel like I constantly repeat the same things over and over again, and you probably get tired of me, but it's for that reason. Because it's I know you've heard this again, but I'm still finding people aren't doing it, and I have to just keep on it until it's not a problem anymore. And then I know elementary, it's 5 buildings, so it's harder for Natalia to have a meeting as frequently as I can with the 2 buildings, but she has meetings as well, so yes. Did that answer?
That's it, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I had a question just to help put this in context. So could you remind us kind of the impetus for this audit and review? Was this part of an internally motivated look, or is it PDE compliance driven?
This is not PDE compliance driven. And I think I said that when I was presenting the special ed plan, that there's certain things that PDE is looking for, but we want to do better than just what PDE is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is part of our program review cycle, similar to the curriculum review cycle. And so, you'll hear about Gifted shortly, and that's the same thing. Gifted was up for an audit last year. Life Skills was audited last year from the both were done by the CCIU. This year, emotional support's under audit, and then we follow the process of we were audited, we got, these results, and now we're developing procedures or looking at curriculum, and then we implement, just like the curriculum review cycle.
Thank you, that's helpful, because this is an awful lot of work to take on and to drive this program improvement just for, what's best for our students. So thank you for how thorough this all is.
Anything else?
I had a comment. So the next steps were to look at the 3 programs that you presented on that slide. Mm-hmm. And what I heard was one is simply an assessment, so it doesn't seem acceptable. And then there were 2, and I think I heard a comment with the Links program that would require more resource, or that your schedules were tight. And
Our schedules, yes, it would, but we can build the time, we would find it. Because right now, the way we're addressing adapted skills is in the moment. So I can speak to elementary. It's a lot of personal care with little kids. Our little guys are still learning how to use the bathroom or take off their coat or put on their coat. And this program would be more like adding a class. So just finding, rebudgeting the time.
Okay, yeah, I guess my question was, do you need more resource if you want to implement? Because that would be.
So you're right, the second two, which are more like assessments, would probably require a supplement to go with it or something to go with it. Like, it may be a very good assessment, but if teachers have to create the curriculum, then that's not the best program. So with further research, if we really like that assessment, then we would have to figure out what goes with that, because you still need to do the instructional piece as well. And so go ahead.
So the one thing I want to be clear, there's not a lot of adaptive skills programs out there. Like this is a common problem throughout, I think, the life skills world, from what you see in social media, like Facebook groups that like help teachers and talk, but also within we go to the county once every quarter, I think it is. And it seems to be a bigger issue. There's not a lot of adaptive skills formally written.
It's a very small population of students, and I don't think it gets the care and consideration in terms of program development by program developers that a lot of other areas do, so.
And I did share that with, as I was going through, updates with the cabinet members, that I do think the programming subcommittee has the biggest challenge in the sense that there is not a lot that exists. And even the auditors from the Chester County Intermediate Unit told us there's not a lot that exists. But we do agree that there needs to be more structured programming, because there's things that we naturally know kids need to learn, just from being teachers, parents, caregivers. We know there are things that students need to learn, but being able to make sure that we're like touching on the important things, and that they're actually making progress, and not just doing it one day and then 2 weeks later they forgot how to do it. So just making it a little bit more structured so we can really show that the student is maybe ready to do more things independently. And I do think with this population, because it's so small, we tend to do things for them for a really long time and forget that the goal is to make them independent at some point, or as independent as possible, because they're all very different. But it's, you help. They have instructional aides that help, teachers that help. Everybody wants to do everything for them, but we really need to start trying to increase their independence, and that's the goal. So.
I will be honest, we've focused very hard on do not do that, sit on your hand. I say sit on your hands a lot in my classroom to the adults, because everybody does want to help. But that is a big focus. I try very hard to not build that. I want the students to be independent. So another example would be like unpacking, where every student gets 1 or 2 opportunities, or throughout the day you pack up and unpack, where our students might need that skill directly taught and practiced, and have those. That's where we go into those visuals, rather than having an adult do it for them. We would build a visual schedule where they would have to be like, okay, I unzipped, check. Now I'm going to take out my folder, check. So that kind of stuff. That's the adaptive skills. That doesn't really exist in a curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate the time and attention you've given not only to the presentation, but to the work that the committee is doing. Thank you for bringing all that to us this evening. And then our final presentation this evening is a gifted program update. And we have, it looks like, several people presenting, led by Mr. David Parker.
Anna. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to provide the board with an update regarding the work being completed by our K-12 Gifted Committee this year. As we move through this presentation this evening, please do not hesitate to ask any questions. Interrupt us, please, as you feel comfortable. Before we jump into things, we have several members, as mentioned, of the committee here with us this evening. I would like to take a brief opportunity to introduce everyone in attendance. Ms. Holly Von Farrell from the middle school, Ms. Sarah Shaman from Chatham, Ms. Kim Kennedy here from Coopertown. Sorry, Kim, sitting in for you. Ms. Michelle Downs from Coopertown, Dr. Renee Mosser from Manoa, Ms. Barry Butler from Manoa, Ms. Karen Potratz from Chestnut Wald, Ms. Karen Kunza from Chestnut Wald, and Ms. Krista Magny from Chestnut Wald. We have quite a large committee for this work, so I'm very appreciative of the folks who are here this evening. Let's get into it. Last year, the Pupil Services Department worked with the Chester County Intermediate Unit to complete a comprehensive audit of our K-12 gifted program. And in March of 2023, we prepared a brief presentation for the board following the completion of that work. Last year's audit was structured in a manner that focused on 4 specific areas. You'll see them there in blue at the bottom, the left-hand side of the screen. Those 4 areas: screening and identification, for those who can't read from home, program design and delivery, professional development, and communication. When the administrative team met at the end of the spring semester last year to review the audit recommendations at length, 3 priorities were identified for the committee to address during the 23-24 school year. Here you'll see 7 summary recommendations from the audit report itself. This is the executive summary, if you will. As you will notice, numbers 1, 3, and 6 are in a different color, a different font. And this is just a highlight for the board. These are the 3 primary objectives or primary areas of focus that were identified by the administrative team, K-12, for the gifted committee to focus on this year. It is important to note that these are recommendations from knowledgeable experts in the field of gifted education. These are not mandates from PDE. Our committee was charged with reviewing the audit recommendations to assess how they can best enhance our existing program here in Haverford and to bring those recommendations forward to the administrative team at the end of this year in 23-24. Number 1, development of a universal screening and identification protocol that will promote the identification of a more diverse gifted population. And you'll see this repeated throughout the next few slides. Number 3, our second area, implementation of individualized, specially designed instruction across all contexts with shared responsibility between the gifted support teachers and the regular education teachers. And then number 6, our third area of focus, annual and consistent professional learning opportunities for all professional staff to raise awareness of the specialized learning needs of gifted students. The full committee is comprised of 32 professionals and administrators from across the district, with representatives from each of the 3 levels of our program, elementary, middle, and high school. And the committee was further structured into 3 subcommittees, one for each area of focus that we just reviewed on this slide. Additionally, we also asked our gifted support teachers from across the district to help lead each subcommittee, to help ensure the work that would be consistent with the Chapter 16 regulations from PDE, which guide gifted programming in Pennsylvania. And we have several committee members who are serving on more than one subcommittee based on their professional experiences and general areas of expertise. Over the next several slides, we will share with you some of the more specific recommendations underlying each of these 3 areas and examples of what the committee will recommend as we start to close out our work for this year. I would like to underscore that this is year 1 of the committee's work, and we fully anticipate that our work as a gifted team will continue into next school year and beyond. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Downs.
Oh.
Excuse me, Dr. Downs.
Hi there. I am part of the subcommittee that was looking at the universal screener. And so we really, and Mr. Parker said, we're really looking at measures that will allow us to maybe pick up some students that wouldn't typically make it through the screener. And so we have the 4 recommendations that we're currently working on as a committee. And so we want to revise the current screener that we're using, and we want to use the protocol, we want a protocol that's really ensuring best practices. So it's not just looking at one number. So we also want to comply with Chapter 16 and make sure with regards to Child Find we're not missing some students, and that especially those who are at risk for under identification. And then we are making sure that we are really looking on that second part of the code, that other multiple criteria instead of just that full scale IQ score, and making sure that we are including nonverbal measures during that screening process ahead of the time. So actually including that, typically we use that other multiple criteria when we're determining eligibility for gifted programming while the student is being evaluated for giftedness. We use some of it as part of the screening measure, but we would like to have that be a little bit more robust. And we want to increase our communication with all of those who are involved with this gifted process. And so that is with additional communication resources. So here we have some of the results of what we have worked on this year and what we've discussed, and we've discussed a lot. We're a very talkative group and we have a lot of opinions. But we really do want to get this right. People are really invested, right? You know, everything says that, you know, students really benefit from enrichment opportunities, and so we definitely don't want to miss the students that we might be missing. And so the two screeners that we have it down to are the Naglieri test and the cognitive abilities test, which is the COGAT, and we're making a final determination on that at some point. We haven't quite decided, but we know for sure they're those two. We're also going to make the changes to the screening process, and as I said, we're going to look at some more of that other multiple criteria, and so that will include the student work samples and classroom diagnostic tools. And finally, that updated communication is the gifted program brochure and then through the Haverford website to make sure that provides information for the people who are really looking for it. Do you have any questions about our subcommittee, this first subcommittee?
I had a question. I wondered if the outcome of a change in the screening, is it thinking that we would capture a larger number of students eligible for gifted students or gifted services, or just a different group of students?
So I think the screener is we're hoping to cast like a wider net, and then we would still have to go through the evaluation process to determining gifted eligibility. And so you could say perhaps we would get a larger population, but I just really wouldn't know. It does change year to year who qualifies for the gifted program.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Now I'll turn it over to next. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kim Kennedy. I teach gifted education at Coopertown Elementary, and I'm blessed to be in the school district for 29 years. The second of the three recommendations the committee has been working to address is the development of specially designed instruction and its implementation across all contexts with shared responsibility between the gifted support teacher and the regular education teacher. Listed on this slide are three recommendations the subcommittee has been focusing on the most. The first bullet that you see there is the recommendation to increase widespread implementation of best practices for gifted learners that access a depth of knowledge and skills commensurate with the student's giftedness and maintain district focus, increasing higher level differentiation for advanced students in all general education classes. The second bullet, foster the development of ongoing professional learning opportunities to support a valid and reliable data collection system throughout the district to support defensible gifted written report and gifted individualized education plan creation and best practices for differentiation and individualization. And the final bullet, provide training and assistance for general education teachers on their role and responsibilities in the creation and implementation of gifted individualized education plans per Chapter 16 regulations. Taking the audit recommendations into consideration, as well as knowledge of best practices, the subcommittee will recommend that we develop a plan to increase the amount of time for push-in support in the regular education classroom and collaboration between gifted support and general education teachers. Now, we have a great communication between our gifted education teachers and our general education teachers, but what we're asking is, how can we make it better? The second bullet, refine a model gifted written report and gifted individualized education plan to ensure consistent data collection and reporting across all buildings. As we evolve as a district, we also evolve in the measures in which we use to assess children. These measures have to be reported in these documents with a degree of consistency. Professional development options for general education teachers related to their role and responsibilities as related to the implementation of the gifted individualized education plan, enhancing the implementation of best practices for gifted learners that focuses on a depth of knowledge and increasing higher level learning in general education classes. As somebody who's had the benefit of being in the general education class for many years, teaching 5th grade, and then moving to gifted education, I can tell you that we have to be careful about the assumptions that we make on the part of the general education teacher. We, as gifted educators, have to look at our best practices and how we can work with a general education teacher, and then how we can implement professional development so that they can best meet the needs of our learners. Thank you very much.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Can you give me an example of what push-in support would look like?
That's a very good question, and that is something that the committee wants to take a look at very closely, because there's various models of push-in support. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the specific need of the gifted learner? What are our needs of the results of the data assessment that we're implementing in the district? And work with curriculum coordinators so that we can see how we can move these students who are performing very well to even perform better, and to think deeply and not just get the same skill over and over again, but to get something a little bit deeper that will meet their needs.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that you may have some examples in your own experience where you have pushed into, for example, like a 1st grade classroom, and you provide some additional support or enrichment. Heard it from a friend.
Let me tell you something. I have, which is a real gift for me, speaking of giftedness, because I have the advantage of getting to know many of the children in the school. And they surprise me. They're always surprising me. But if we don't get into the classrooms, we're talking about identifying students who may not always be identified in a screener. We might have to do a little bit of talent hunting when it comes to some students. And the earlier that we can work with these students and identify these students, the more we can service their needs. So yes, I have been in classrooms as early as kindergarten and 1st grade. I do know some very interesting young ladies that go to our school too. I won't mention any names. So. Any more questions?
Is there any overlap in the support that a gifted teacher would provide in a general education that would benefit, general education students or maybe even special education students? My brain just did some gymnastics thinking about, 0.5 reading specialist, right? Is this one of the things that would benefit a gifted child and also benefit a special education child? Are there opportunities here for overlap? And I guess that was a couple of compound questions, but.
No, these are very good questions. I can say that we have to, we are Chapter 16 regulated teachers under the state of Pennsylvania. So there's certain rules and regulations that we have to abide to. That being said, I am first and foremost a teacher. So when it comes to the students in the building, my job that I see, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well, when we see a student, what do you love? What is your passion? Tell me about your math. Tell me about your language arts. Very often I have been with some students who are not in the gifted program, but I am encouraging them to do their personal best. There's always overlap.
And can I also add, at the elementary level, we have the MTSS program, and so every day that meets for 45 minutes, and students are placed in groups that best meet their needs. So some students need some additional support to meet grade level standards. Some students are at grade level, and some students get those enrichment opportunities, whether they're identified as a gifted student or not, and they could have a particular strength in reading and they get that support in reading, or they could have a particular strength in math and they would get that enrichment in math.
And the teachers also consult with the gifted support teachers as to materials that we can provide directly or indirectly within the classroom.
I just wanted to ask another question about, when it comes to identifying, a wider array of our gifted children. This new screener, does it have anything built in for, considering students of different backgrounds, twice exceptional, diverse? When you say a wider array, I want to know, what does wider mean?
So we have English language learners, these measures have nonverbal components. For giftedness, the the students who are kept most out of gifted are economically disadvantaged students. And so that's why that other multiple criteria and those other areas really come into play.
We also have students in our program where we are a related service, so we have students that have autism. We are incorporating a look, and I believe Dr. Mercer is going to speak about that, at our gifted population as far as equitable and diverse practices. So I'm a member of the equity and diversity team in our school as well, and that is something that we're looking at.
And that's a great segue.
Just
like I'm like burning over here, dying to get up here to talk about the professional development. I did hit the button. I hit it again. Am I hitting the? Oh, see, I can't do this. Oh my goodness, I'm not doing anything. Okay, All right, so talking about professional development and really looking at some masking factors. One recommendation from the audit was that we would look for professional development for our staff on opportunities to be able to understand the needs of our gifted learners. So what do those needs look like? And then also provide professional development on instructing the staff on Chapter 16. What are those screeners? What ways do we identify those students, especially those that are our underserved populations? In addition to that, they recommended providing training and support to enhance the gifted support teacher and our school psychologist on writing very specific gifted IEPs, or GIEPs, sorry, and how to enhance that academically. And then finally, just developing a professional development plan on ways in which we can instruct best practices for those gifted learners. So those were some of the recommendations we've received. And some of the things that the committee talked about is creating this library where we can increase an understanding of the needs of our gifted learners and ways that we could use multiple criteria in recognizing those gifted learners for that screening process, as well as enhancing the implementation of those best practices for all of our teachers, because all students can benefit from this enrichment. And then obviously the training support for our school psychologists and gifted support teacher on the creation of very thorough and specific GIEPs. So I have an example of one thing we did last year at Manoa, because increasing our gifted population, which what Dr. Downs just said, that net, and how can we expand our net and really look at those students and look at those masking factors. So Mrs. Sandy Turig, who is my gifted teacher at Manoa, came to me and said, hey, I'd love to get this book. This seems like a really great book. It is Seeing and Serving Underserved Gifted Students. And what I like about this, because we get books, right? But how often can we go through these books, and we all have good intentions, but when push comes to shove, students need our time in the classroom. But what I really like about it, and that's why I brought this book, is that each chapter talks about see me is the title, understand me is the next chapter, teach me, challenge me, advocate for me. And this book is a huge resource of one of the multiple criteria that we could use. So what we did is, when we think about it, professional development, I know what's going through your mind. We don't have much time. This is a lot of time. This is a lot of asking for our staff. What more are they going to have to do? What are we going to have to take away so that we can add this? But this was just what we started in our faculty meetings. It was a 10-minute snapshot where Mrs. Turig came in. She said, see me. She took notes from it. She had handouts for staff. So they walked away with reminders of how to look for those
gifted learners, because they're not always the ones that love school. They're not always the ones that are raising their hands, ready to like jump on the learning. Sometimes they're the ones that are quiet because the way they're thinking is different than the way everyone else is thinking. So how can we start to see them differently? And then what is so great about this book and why I had to bring it, and Kim will also say that because we were talking about it. There's also different ways to, like checklists for teachers to walk away with. So here's the great story. I had a teacher who came, a third grade teacher, comes to our child study team and says, I believe I have a gifted student in my class. And we said, how do you know that? Well, they don't raise their hand, they don't talk a lot, but when they do talk, their language and their background knowledge is so robust. And she's like, I went through that checklist from the faculty meeting and like I found like 5 different things on the checklist. And Mrs. Turg was great because we also give out handouts and we know sometimes we have good intentions, but they sit in the folder and they just go to the side and we'll get to it when we get to it. But the teachers are really hearing it from our staff and they're utilizing it. We were able to, and that student happened to be gifted, and not because they were the straight A student, but because we saw some of those different factors that stood out. So that's just an example of some multiple criteria in the screener that can come from our staff with the right kind of professional development that doesn't need more time, more money, but just needs to be tweaked a little bit on the professional development and the time we already have with our teachers. So do you have any questions for me?
I love that so much. I just hope that we also, explore the children who have the ants in their pants, right? Like,
Of
the
course.
quiet kids, yes, the kids that are obviously answering questions and telling you things, but also the ones who get identified for behavior problems. Maybe we're quick to identify the ADHD and it's a little bit harder for us to get to the giftedness. And it sounds like you're already doing that, and I appreciate it. I just want to point out, ants in your pants. Think of those kids too.
That's a great point. And we have identified some dually identified students because of that. So it is, when we're all working and moving the ship the same direction, we have more eyes in other places. So I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
All right. So what's next? Next steps. The administrative review of the summary recommendations from the committee will move forward at the end of May, before the end of the semester. The 24-25 committee work will continue as related to the remaining summary recommendations. As we move forward and focus on the implementation of the committee's recommendation from this year, we will also begin to develop the remaining 4 summary recommendations from the audit in a similar fashion as we move into 24-25. Finally, on our last slide this evening, I would like to recognize all the members of the committee who have contributed to this work throughout the year. This is truly an amazing team of professionals and administrators, and we wouldn't be able to accomplish as much without them. We're very grateful for their time, their leadership, and their dedication to our gifted program here in Haverford. With that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
It was helpful that you took questions throughout.
Well, thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah, I do, these opportunities to hear about what's going on in the classroom and the thinking and rationale and best practices are always, eye-opening as a board member and as a parent who, observed from more of a distance what was happening in the school and to hearing the thoughtfulness that goes into this. And it does, to LaTanya Lee's comments about finding ways to take, a required program specific for gifted students, but you see the opportunities to broaden our approach to education, to differentiate, to find ways to enhance, and that I can imagine lots of ways that benefits the school climate and culture and just opportunities for all students. So thank you for all the, just opportunity to hear more about what's going on in this special program and then the ways that it resides in the school culture more generally.
It's very nice of you to say. We have a very good group, and we're very fortunate with the staff members we have, and the program has been strong and robust for years, but we're always looking for ways to improve.
It's another, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just had a question around how to assess improvement. You know, how do you determine that you are identifying, the right kids, and how are you going to continually sort of reassess?
From the whole presentation, or are you talking about just the identification
The
component?
implementation of these, these guidelines, how are you going to assess success that, these are working?
Primarily through feedback loops, our administrative feedback loops, and our teaching teams. Our professional staff at different levels have multiple meetings planned throughout the year, throughout the month, the year, each semester, and there's a lot of overlap in like feedback loops in terms of like both qualitative data and quantitative data, because we're looking at the students and the evaluations we are conducting, comparing them to past years, and then looking to make sure that we have a representative student population. I'm sorry, were you gonna?
I was just gonna add that we look at our demographic data every summer as related to identification of gifted, special education, higher level courses. And so that data, if we're identifying a more representative group of students compared to like our actual demographic data, then that's our goal, is to make it, equal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I just think it's very clear the commitment to continuous improvement that we have here from this program. We have programs that were presented tonight that are successful programs, but you can hear all of the work and the thought and the commitment that has gone into evaluating, making sense of the evaluation, and then really what's practical and what will be meaningful for our students. So just want to express our appreciation, my appreciation to you and the group and everyone who was listed here for sharing with us that work this evening. Great. Next item on the agenda are the information items. We only have 6. No, I'm kidding, we don't. The only thing we have is our next committee meeting is May 9th, and that will be an exciting one. We'll hear about more program information, the English Language Arts audit results, and the steps that have been taken as a result of those results will be shared, as well as an update to Goal 3, which is our diversity and inclusion goal. That will include some information on how we're using elements of effective lessons and culturally relevant strategies. So we're excited for another robust curriculum meeting on May 9th, beginning at 7:15. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the established agenda items, and there is an opportunity for public comment. And I see a frequent commenter to return to the podium. Just tell us your name.
I am Rich McGlory, and I live at 1246 Dill Road in Havertown, Pennsylvania. And this was a wonderful meeting tonight. I can't say enough about it. And I got to give a round of applause to the life skills teachers here. I should have done it when they were done, but I was trying to mind my P's and Q's. And, I just couldn't help it. But they are doing a wonderful job. There is nothing out there that's going to teach them and tell them what to do in their classes. They create what they need to do. And they're obviously doing an excellent job. Now, on the issue of assessment, I'm going to change my little speed here, my little system here, but I just want to tell you about what informal assessment is. Now, I've told you about little Johnny and how he scripts all the songs in all his movies, and one of the things, we have 3 versions of Peter Pan on the DVR, and he watches them all over and over and over again. And Santa Claus brought him this little book called Peter Pan, which I've been trying to read with him, get him to read with me since Christmas time. No way, he knows this and all. And tonight we were cleaning off the kitchen table, and there was the Peter Pan book. So as we were cleaning up, Johnny's playing in the sink with his animals and his crocodiles and fish and everything else. So I take the book and I say, "Hey, Johnny." And I put it in front of his nose as he was playing with his animals. I said, "What does that say? Read that to me." right? And I pointed to Peter. And he looked at it, and I said, what's that letter? And I go, and he goes, Peter Pan. Peter Pan. That is a major step in his cognitive development. That is the first time in my lifetime that I have seen him sound out a word. That is a major developmental step, believe me, because that is what they've been trying to work on at Manoa Elementary School with the reading specialists and Mrs. S and all. You know, Mrs. S tells me we've been working on those sounds. He actually did it. And, you know, usually you just look at the pictures and go on Peter Pan, and, that kind of stuff. That's what informal assessment is. And that's what teachers do all the time, okay? Now, back to what I was talking about before about the music program. I just want to tell you, I got a wonderful call the next day from Matt Crater, explaining to me about the music programs that they have in the classes and all. It was wonderful, and he called it a good time because my wife, my son, and I were all there. We talked to him. Wonderful, resolved the thing, sent me the handbook, told us about how we try to include autistic kids and all. That's not to say that John is just going to go and join the chorus or anything like that. It doesn't work that way with little Johnny. And the other thing I just want to say about the financial planning program, absolutely wonderful. The people there were very, very receptive, very neat, scared me what would happen to my son, to my grandson if my son died. And I have a book of trust at home, and I got to figure out the right trust to do this thing. It was wonderful. But just as a little word about reading specialists, the presenter there has a 16-year-old student in our high school, and he made one remark there about, I think it was 84% of autistic children do not have jobs when they grow up. That's not from our school. That's in general. Our school would probably have a lot higher percentage, our school district, but it is concerning. And then I talked to him, I asked him the question, what reading level do you think your son is at? And he said about the 3rd grade reading level. He's 16 years old, and told me about the problems he has with word recognitions and all. Of course, I took the opportunity to let him know that I am an advocate for reading specialists for autistic children. And the thing that I've discussed this issue before, what is the level of functional literacy we have to get autistic children to so that they can go out and function in the world and get jobs? When I started teaching as a reading specialist in 1975, we considered it the 4th grade reading level. I consider it now about the 6th or 7th grade reading level. And how are we going to get our kids up to that reading level? Johnny's not going to read at the 6th or 7th grade reading level till he's in high school. All right, he's going to need reading specialist help next year in small groups. He's individual now. Wonderful job Mrs. Gallagher has done with Johnny. Believe me, he is learning to read. He is learning phonics. He is learning comprehension. I can't say enough. With that, I will let you go home, and thank you all for this meeting tonight. You have a wonderful faculty at those schools.
All right, thank you. I see another public comment.
Rich and I tag team with our 10-year-old grandsons. And I'm looking at all of you, and of course, you know how you've changed his life. But I have a question.
Can I get you to say your name?
Oh,
just
Victoria
for
Brown. I have a question. We've talked about the push-ins and getting kids in the small groups. I still want to know what's happening with the ESSER funding and what we're doing to fill in some of those interventionist teacher slots that we got the Fed money, but as a friend of mine said on the phone the other night, you know about the drop-off, right? And I said, I know all about the drop-off, or the cliff, I guess. So what's happening with the cliff? Sure.
At our finance and facilities meeting this evening, we did present the first pass at our recommendations for our budget. And within that, it included the desire for those 3 additional positions that would fulfill that work that's being done now. So we'll wait to see the rest. 2 were already moved in, so that was the final 3. This year, we had Manoa and Linwood, our permanent contract positions, and as the budget process continues, that is our hope that those final three will be a part of that budget. Sure.
And so can I ask you to put that in a different context? So we received ESSER funds that supported programs, and is it right to interpret what you said, that the district is now finding ways to fund those positions absent the ESSER support?
Exactly. ESSER support ends September of '24, and so that's the cliff that you speak of. Yep.
Seeing no other public comments, the committee is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.